Welcome to the Hindu Daily. We have a really packed set of stories to get through today. We're looking at a lineup that takes us from the high stakes world of political party structures right down to the ground level where survival is being
It's a
tested.
huge range. We're going from political theory to, well, life and death in the forests of Jharkhand.
Exactly. So we're going to start with the editorial section, breaking down the structural decay of the Indian National Congress, and then a strategic blueprint for India's economy in 2026.
And after that, ground zero. That's the report from Jharkhand on a really deadly human-elephant conflict.
It is. Then we'll hit the spotlight section for three really diverse stories. The mass deletion of voters in Uttar Pradesh, the modernization of a massive tribal festival in Telangana, and the rising tide of synthetic drugs in Kochi.
It's a perfect cross-section of the friction points in India right now, the abstract and the very, very real.
Okay, let's dive into that first editorial. It's about the Indian National Congress, and it kicks off with a comment from Digvijay Singh.
Right, where he was praising the organizational strength of the RSS and the BJP.
Yeah, and sort of implying Congress needs to copy that playbook. But the article says this is just a flawed comparison from the get-go.
It's a fundamental error. I mean, the article makes the point that the BJP isn't just a party in the way we usually think of one.
It's part of a whole ecosystem.
Exactly, an ecosystem anchored by the RSS, which gives them what the author calls an external cadre base. Think about that. They have this standing army of trained, ideologically driven workers who are active all the time, not just during elections.
So they're managing booths, shaping local narratives.
All year round.
Yeah.
Congress just doesn't have an equivalent to that. They have to rely entirely on their own internal party workers.
And the source says that base has been thinning out since about 1969 because of institutional erosion. But here's the part that I found really counterintuitive.
The centralization argument.
Yes. We always hear that Congress is too centralized, that the Gandhi family has too much control. But this analysis, it actually suggests the opposite.
It does. It's a fascinating paradox. Citing research from James Manor, the article argues that in practice, Congress is actually quite decentralized and, well, chaotic.
Chaotic, how?
Well, look at the BJP. The control is tight. The central leadership has a huge say in who becomes a chief minister, a state president. JP Nada, Nitin Nabin, they are nominated. It's a very disciplined top-down structure.
Whereas Congress is messier.
Much messier.
Yeah.
And more pluralistic. The example given is the Karnataka Assembly elections back in 2023.
Right. The central leadership kind of took a step back and let the local units run their own campaign.
And it worked. They won.
Yeah.
The argument is that the problem for Congress isn't too much centralization, it's a lack of internal democratization.
So not enough clear pathways for new leaders to rise through the ranks.
That's it. It creates these bottlenecks. You even see it with the whole G23 slump of dissenters a couple of years back.
I was just thinking of them. The fact that they could openly criticize the leadership.
Shows a level of internal freedom you would just never see in the BJP. But, to an outsider, to a voter, that doesn't look like freedom. It looks like the party is falling apart.
Weakness and infighting.
Exactly. So the editorial's conclusion is pretty sharp. For Congress to compete, it doesn't need to become a BJP clone. It needs to rebuild its own unique, pluralistic way of engaging with people.
So stop relying on what the article calls episodic mobilization.
Yes. Stop just waking up when an election is announced and build a consistent year-round presence on the ground.
Okay, speaking of blueprints, let's move to the second editorial. It's 2026, and the economic context is pretty interesting. We've got those 50% U.S. tariffs that hit in 2025, but India's economy seems to be holding up.
It is showing resilience, but the argument here is that resilience needs to be actively managed. You can't just sit back. This piece lays out a blueprint for the 2026-27 budget, and the biggest headline is defense.
They want to push the capital outlay for defense up to 30%. That's a huge hike.
It's a major signal. And we're already seeing the groundwork with the defense industrial corridors in UP and Tamil Nadu. Now there's talk of an Eastern India defense industrial corridor.
But it wasn't just about big spending, was it? The piece got into some very specific supply chain details.
It did. Specifically, critical minerals. The National Critical Mineral Mission got approved in early 2025, but now the article says we need a funded tailings recovery program.
So getting value out of mining waste.
Exactly. Squeezing every last bit of lithium, cobalt, whatever, out of what we've already dug up. That's how you build self-reliance for batteries and electronics.
There's also a really specific call-out on drones. They want to increase the production-linked incentive, the PLI, from, 120 crore to 1,000 crore.
An eightfold jump. It's a signal to the industry to go for mass scale, to stop tinkering and start building a real global industry.
But to build anything, drones, defense, infrastructure, you need capital. And that brought the discussion to the corporate bond market.
And to a big problem. The market is obsessed with only lending to the absolute safest AAA-rated companies.
But that's not where the real growth is.
Not at all.
Yeah.
The real engine is in that middle tier. The source argues we have to open the gates for lower-rated issuers, specifically AA corporates, to issue bonds. If you don't, you're starving the very companies that are supposed to be building the future.
And lastly, a quick point on tax disputes. The backlog sounds like an administrative nightmare.
It is. It's just clogging up the entire system. The suggestion is a dual-track disposal system. You fast-track the simple, small disputes, and you have dedicated teams for the really complex, high-value ones.
Makes sense. You can't have billions locked up in paperwork when you're trying to grow this fast.
All right, from the very structured world of economic blueprints, we're going to shift gears completely. We are moving to the forests of Jharkhand for our Ground Zero segment. And I have to say, this story it's a tough one to read.
It's titled Shadow of the Tusker. And the scale of the tragedy is it's hard to process. We're talking about West Singphum district. And just between January 4 and January 9 of this year, a single elephant has killed 20 people.
20 people. One Tusker.
The way the report frames it, it's the sheer everyday tragedy of it all. It starts with the story of a man named Prakash Tati in Binisagar village. He was 50, he was recovering from jaundice.
And it was a cold morning, and his mother, Kuni Devi, had just put some milk on the chula, the stove, to warm up for him.
That detail, the milk warming on the stove, it just sticks with you. He heard shouting outside about the elephant, so he stepped out, told his parents he'd be right back for the milk.
And he never came back.
Yeah.
His father, Madhu Tati, who's 75, had to be told by a neighbor that his son was gone. Just gone.
And it's happening over and over. The report mentions that because it's harvest season, families are sleeping outside on these temporary wooden platforms called gunyu.
Right in the fields. Entire families just out in the open, completely exposed.
The atmosphere is described as a total siege. In that village, Binisagar, people have stopped sleeping in their homes.
Because the mud walls offer no protection. They're all crowding into the panchayat head's house because it's the only one made of concrete. Your survival literally depends on what your house is made of.
One woman, Jatara, the report says the elephant's tusk actually punctured the wall of her house while she was inside.
I mean, can you imagine the terror? It's not just an outside threat. It's coming into your home.
So the big question is, why? Why is this one elephant on such a rampage?
Well, there are biological factors. It's a male, it's a loner, and it's likely in must, which is a period of heightened aggression. But that's the proximate cause. The root cause is something else.
Habitat degradation.
That's what a study by the Wildlife Institute of India points to. This whole region is rich in iron ore, which means heavy mining.
So we're chopping up the forests, breaking their corridors, and the elephants are basically being pushed into human settlement.
Exactly. The animal is stressed, it's displaced, it's angry, and the villagers are terrified and desperate. They're asking for trenches to be dug, demanding compensation be raised from 4 lakh rupees to 10 lakh.
And the response is this mix of high-tech and, well, desperation. They have drones and thermal cameras.
Right. They've even brought in teams from Jatara in Gujarat to assist. But it's a huge, dense forest. It's incredibly difficult to track one animal.
So the villagers are just lighting bonfires and staying awake all night trying to guard their families. It just feels like a colossal failure of coexistence policy.
It is. We're extracting resources from that land, the iron ore that builds our cities, and the people who live there are paying for it with their lives.
It's a brutal cost of development. Okay, we're going to move now to our spotlight section. 3 very different stories. The first one takes us to Uttar Pradesh. And while it's not violent, it is bureaucratically terrifying. We're talking about vanishing voters.
The numbers here are just mind-boggling. This is about the Special Intensive Revision, or SR, of the electoral rolls in UP. And in absolute numbers, 2.89 crore names have been deleted.
2.89 crore. That's the population of a large country. And in Lucknow alone, 30% of voters were deleted.
30%. The urban areas have been hit incredibly hard. But it's the how that's really disturbing. The whole process hinges on this idea of mapping voters to the 2003 voter list.
So you have to prove you're a resident based on a list from more than 20 years ago.
And if they can't map you to that list, you are at high risk of being deleted. Just poof, gone.
The story of Gurdeep Singh Sapal really illustrates the nightmare. He's a Congress leader, he's savvy, he has his documents, he moved from Ghaziabad to Noida. He has his 2003 paperwork.
And he was deleted anyway.
Yeah.
But this is where the bureaucratic trap snapshot. He was told, okay, no problem, just re-register as a fresh voter using Form 6.
Which sounds simple enough.
It sounds harmless, but Form 6 requires you to sign a declaration saying you are not registered to vote anywhere else in the country.
Ah, it's a legal catch-22.
A total trap. Because the system is so opaque, how can you be 100% sure your name isn't still on some old list in your ancestral village from a decade ago? If you sign that form and a computer flags your name on another list, you've technically committed an offense by making a false declaration.
So people are afraid to even try to re-register.
Of course. And this connects directly to the reality of migrant workers. The source tells the story of Kalpana Halder, a domestic worker in Noida. She lives and works there, but her roots are in West Bengal.
And she likely wants to keep her vote back in her village for local panchayat elections.
It's crucial for maintaining influence and connection back home. So people live these double lives. The bureaucracy sees it as a problem to be cleaned up, but for millions of people, it's just a survival strategy.
And in minority-dominated areas like Derband, the article says this isn't just a bureaucratic headache, it's triggering a much deeper anxiety.
Absolutely. When you start deleting millions of names and demanding 2-decade-old proof of residence, it naturally raises fears about citizenship itself. You have community leaders like Modwaj Shah literally running camps to help people fill out these complicated forms.
The entire burden of proof has been shifted onto the citizen.
Completely. Instead of the state ensuring your right to vote, you now have to wage a war against paperwork just to prove you should be on the list.
From that paper war in UP, we're going to travel to the forests of Telangana. This is our second spotlight story about the Medaram Jatara. And the central image here is just, it's stunning.
It really is. The author describes this giant 50-foot granite arch rising up from the middle of the Dandakranya forest. It's carved with swastikas and lizards. It's for the Samaka Saralama Jatara,
Which is one of the largest tribal festivals on Earth. But the story isn't about the size, it's about the concrete transformation of it.
That is the absolute core of the story, the tension. Historically, this festival was intimate, it was animist. The deities are formless spirits of the forest. The temple was literally just a mud platform under some trees.
Chaotic, earthy.
Very. But now, with millions of pilgrims, the government has stepped in to manage it. They've laid down granite flooring, built permanent concrete queue lines, permanent structures everywhere.
And you can see the logic. I mean, managing millions of people walking on mud that's covered in jaggery offerings must be a nightmare.
From a crowd control perspective, sure.
Yeah.
But the tribal elders, the Thalapathy, they feel it's a violation of the entire spirit of the event.
Why?
Their point is beautiful in its simplicity. They say the divinities, Samaka and Saralama, they're only physically present in that spot for 3 days during the festival.
Yeah.
So why are we building them permanent concrete houses? They're just visiting.
It's the state's idea of efficiency versus the tribe's idea of authenticity.
Exactly. And you see it in the offerings, too. There's this cultural erosion happening. It used to be offerings of vipasara, a liquor made from local mawa flowers.
And now?
Now it's store-bought bottled liquor. And coconuts, which the article points out don't even grow in that forest. But coconuts have become the main offering because that's what's done in mainstream Hindu temples. It's a homogenization of faith.
The article points out a fascinating historical irony about the arches.
Oh, it's brilliant. The Kakatiya rulers who fought these very tribes centuries ago, they built these massive victory arches. Those arches are now ruins. And here, today, the tribe's festival is now building its own massive arches.
Wow. History looping back on itself. The story ends with this really poignant image of a man, Tota Sailu.
Yes, he's there to sacrifice a lamb, which is a traditional part of the ritual, but he can't do it at the main site anymore.
It's too regulated.
Too clean, too managed. So he has to go to a paddy field on the outskirts of the festival to complete his ritual. The core ritual has been pushed to the margins to make way for the management of the crowd.
Okay, for our final spotlight story, we are going to Kochi. And this one starts like a crime movie. A midnight knock on a door in Vanilla.
This is the piece called Shadows of Kochi. It's about the synthetic drug crisis. The scene is exactly that. A raid by the anti-narcotic squad, Dan Saf. They find 50 grams of MDMA. The young man who lives there tries to run, and in the process, he fractures a cop's leg.
It's a dramatic opening to a story about a huge surge in drug cases. The number was 6,914 NDPS cases in NotebookLM in 2025 alone.
A massive number. And the story points to a clear shift in what's being sold. It's moving away from ganja, which used to come mainly from Odisha.
Two synthetic drugs like MDMA coming from Bengaluru and Delhi. But the part that really stood out to me was the modus operandi, the juice straw method.
It is terrifyingly clever. The dealers stuff the drugs, the MDMA powder, into regular drinking straws. They seal the ends,
And then just drop them in public places.
drop them on a roadside, in a park. Then they send the GPS location to the buyer using an encrypted app. There's no physical handoff. No money changes hands directly. It just looks like a piece of litter until the right person picks it up.
It makes it so hard to police. And the police describe this 5-layered distribution network.
Yes, and it's a network that often traps its own customers.
Yeah.
The report talks about how students get caught in it. They start as users, but synthetics are expensive. So to fund their own habit, they're forced to become low-level peddlers themselves.
The human cost is made very clear with the story of Akash, a young creative professional.
Yeah, his story is heartbreaking. He was ragged badly in college, started using cannabis to cope with the trauma, and then just spiraled down into depression and harder drugs.
But the article ends on a note of, if not hope, then at least a potential solution, a policy shift.
Right, and it's an important one. The police in Kochi are making more use of Section 64A of the NDPS Act.
Which is the provision that lets offenders choose rehab over jail time.
Exactly. If you're caught with a small quantity for personal use, you can get immunity from prosecution if you agree to go to a de-addiction center. About 40 people in Ernakulam used this last year.
And experts are saying this is critical, especially with the risk of HIV spikes from needle sharing.
It's treating it as a public health crisis, not just a criminal one, which at the end of the day is probably the only way you can really tackle something like this.
So, to just quickly recap our journey today, we saw the Congress Party grappling with its own structure. We saw an economic blueprint trying to unlock capital. Then the tragic human cost of habitat loss in Jharkhand.
Followed by the bureaucratic erasure of voters in UP, the concrete reshaping of a tribal faith in Telangana, and finally the shadow war against synthetic drugs in Kochi.
If there's a single thread running through all of this, it feels like it's about displacement.
That's a great way to put it. Elephants displaced from forests, voters from electoral rolls, tribal traditions displaced by concrete, and young people displaced from reality by addiction. It's a snapshot of a country in a state of immense flux.
Indeed. A lot to think about. Thank you for listening. If you want to provide suggestions, please contact on the Twitter handle given in the episode description. As always, we are eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.